I never imagined that my daughter's college graduation day would become the most brutal turning point of my life. In that exact moment, when glasses clinked and every eye turned toward the podium, the man I had called my husband for 27 years stood up and shattered my heart in front of dozens of people. I've decided to leave you. Starting today, I'm beginning a new life without you, he said, his voice calm to the point of being chilling. The room fell silent. No more laughter, no more congratulations, just the pounding of my heart, like a drum warning of an incoming storm. But I didn't cry, I didn't beg, and what I did next sent him into a panic. My name is Clara Whitmore, 52 years old, mother of a wonderful daughter who just graduated with honors from the University of California at Berkeley. We held the celebration at a high-end Italian restaurant in San Francisco, the same place I once hosted our 20th wedding anniversary, where I cried tears of joy. Tonight, same place, no tears. I still remember the moment my husband, Nathan Whitmore, stood up with a glass of red wine in hand, smiling as if he were about to give a toast for our daughter Isabel. Everyone's face was glowing, and Isabel was fixing the ribbon on her graduation gown. She still had the same soft, golden curls she wore in high school and a light in her eyes as she looked at her dad, rising. So proud of you, Isabel, but there's something I need to say tonight. Nathan turned to me, eyes locked like I was the only audience. I can't live this life anymore, Clara. I've chosen a different path. Starting today, I'm leaving this marriage. The words dropped like a sharp blade slicing through the air. Isabel froze. I heard a fork hit a porcelain plate at the next table. My longtime friend Linda covered her mouth in shock. And Nathan, he stood there like he had just granted me some twisted form of mercy. I took a deep breath, gently laid my napkin on my lap, then reached into the cream clutch beside me. I pulled out a sealed envelope. Calm, unrushed. I placed it in front of Nathan, deliberate and steady, as if I had rehearsed this moment. "What's this?" he asked, the smugness in his expression beginning to crack. "Something for you to read. When you're ready to face the consequences," I replied evenly. I turned to Isabel, brushed her hair gently, and kissed her on the forehead. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. No matter what happens, tonight is still your night." I stood up. The room was absolutely still. Everyone waited for me to collapse. They expected tears, rage, a dramatic breakdown, but I wasn't performing anymore. I had played the perfect wife, the understanding mother, for a lifetime. Now I chose to be me. "Please, enjoy your meal. I wish everyone a lovely evening," I said with a polite smile, then turned and walked away. My heels clicked against the tile floor like the final punctuation mark to my old life. I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because I knew when that restaurant door closed behind me, all eyes were still on me. Not because I had just been left, but because I refused to be broken. Not ever again. I had planned to leave Nathan months before, not because I wanted to, but because he gave me no other choice. It all started on an early December evening while I was reviewing our joint bank statements in preparation for tax season. I had been the financial manager of our household for nearly 3 decades. Not because I was better at it, but because Nathan never cared about the numbers. He lived in fantasy, I lived in facts. And that night, reality slapped me in the face. I discovered a series of suspicious transfers. $1,200 at a restaurant in Napa Valley, $3,500 spent on jewelry at a boutique in Carmel, and a real estate transaction marked as a deposit for $9,800, all from a secondary account opened less than a year ago, under the name N. Whitmore Investment Account. What shocked me most was that I had never even heard of this account, and I had never been consulted about any of these so-called investments. I didn't throw things, I didn't scream, I didn't break wine glasses like in the movies. I just sat there in the silent kitchen, hands slightly trembling, but my mind crystal clear. I had just entered a war zone, and if I wanted to survive, I had to prepare my weapons carefully. I began gathering evidence. I quietly backed up every suspicious transaction to my personal laptop. I changed passwords on every device connected to me or Isabel. I hired a legal consultant, Charlotte Reyes, a sharp and composed attorney specializing in financial betrayal divorces. Charlotte was exactly the kind of woman Nathan had always found intimidating. I found her safe. We reviewed our prenuptial agreement signed in 1995, the year I was the sole heir to a trust fund worth $300,000 from my grandmother. Nathan was just a high school teacher back then, and ironically, he had insisted on the prenup to preserve financial independence for both sides. In that agreement, Clause 14 clearly stated, if either party is found to have committed infidelity supported by evidence, that party forfeits claim to joint assets. Nathan had laughed at it while signing, calling it a symbolic promise of honor. I remember believing him. Now, his so-called honor had a price tag. Every dollar he spent on that brunette with the fake plump lips I once mistook for a colleague. Audrey Sanders, 35 years old, a communications hire brought into Nathan's company earlier that year. They got close after a seminar trip to San Diego. I knew something was wrong when he came home earlier than expected, but hadn't replied to a single message for 12 hours. A 50-year-old man doesn't just start dyeing his hair, wearing Tom Ford cologne, and buying slim-fit shirts for no reason. I had hoped it was a harmless midlife crisis, but it turned out to be a calculated and costly affair. I hired a private investigator. Within 3 weeks, I had photos, hotel bills, and audio clips of him calling her the new light in his life. Ironic. And me? I was the shadow he was trying to cast off. Charlotte advised me to stay calm and build stronger. We drafted the divorce papers, itemized all assets, and prepared a claim for breach of prenuptial agreement. Everything was ready. I was simply waiting for the right moment. One Nathan would never see coming. He chose Isabel's graduation dinner to kill our marriage publicly. He thought he'd control the narrative, humiliate me, and walk away victorious. What he didn't know was this. I had rewritten my ending a long time ago. And the envelope I placed in front of him that night, that was the first spark to burn down his illusion. My eye had just managed to sit down on the living room couch when the front door burst open and slammed shut. Rushed footsteps echoed through the hallway. Less than 30 minutes ago, Nathan had stood in a luxurious restaurant and declared our marriage over like the lead actor in his own twisted production. Now he was storming back in, face flushed with rage, the envelope I left clenched in his fist. The thing he thought was a goodbye. But it wasn't. Here's the opening shot. Nathan, what the hell do you think you're doing? He shouted, his voice cutting through the entire house. Have you lost your mind? I closed my laptop, stood up, and looked him straight in the eye. No, Nathan, I've never been more clear, I said firmly. And if you'd taken the time to read that envelope before throwing a tantrum, you'd realize you just stepped into a game you're not equipped to win. He slammed the stack of papers onto the table. Divorce papers? On Isabel's graduation day? You're sick. You plan to dump me in front of our daughter and 50 other people, Nathan. I just got there first. And that's what you call sick? And he didn't say a word, just exhaled sharply, running a hand through his now graying hair. I slowly walked to the liquor cabinet, poured myself a glass of wine, and looked at him the way a banker looks at a client, discovering their credit has collapsed. Do you remember Clause 14 in the prenup? I asked, calm, like I was asking about the lunch menu. That damn prenup expired years ago, he snapped, fists clenched. I smirked. You're wrong. The final note, third line, clearly states the infidelity clause remains valid for the entire duration of the marriage. No expiration. No loopholes. Nathan's face visibly paled. He staggered back like I'd just punched him in the chest. He had never read the fine print. When he signed it, he thought it was just a formality because of the trust fund from my grandmother. He never imagined it would come back to choke him nearly 30 years later. You can't take everything from me, he said, voice beginning to shake. This house, the joint account, Isabel. The house is in my name under the 2008 agreement when your first company failed. The joint account was frozen this morning by emergency court order. And Isabel? Don't you dare use her as a shield. You weren't thinking of her when you were screwing Audrey in that Sausalito hotel. His eyes widened. You were spying on me? No need. You left a trail like an amateur. Hotel receipts, text messages, even lobby security camera footage. I have enough to make the court roll its eyes. And Nathan collapsed onto the couch, hands clutching his head. His breathing came in short, ragged waves, like he was drowning. I'll be moving in with my sister Natalie, I continued, voice crisp. You have 48 hours to pack your things. If you're still here after that, my attorney will work directly with the police to have you removed. He looked up, face flushed with anger. Clara, don't do this. You don't have to be this cruel. I set my wine down on the table and leaned in. I'm not being cruel. I'm just done being tolerant. He didn't answer, just stared at the thick file in front of him, the one I'd spent 5 months building ever since I spotted that first suspicious transaction. Inside were the $3,500, 0 cents jewelry receipt, the weekend getaway in Big Sur, hotel bills charged through his fake company, and the messages between him and Audrey. She'll never suspect a thing. Clara trusts me blindly. Blind trust? No, Nathan, I was just being polite while I waited to see how far you'd fall. A phone ring shattered the thick tension. He pulled it from his pocket, glanced at the screen, then flipped it face down on the table. I glanced over. Audrey was clearly displayed. Looks like your muse is getting nervous, I said with a quiet laugh. Maybe you haven't told her yet that the beachfront apartment fantasy is officially over. You know about that too? He asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. I know everything. What I hadn't told him yet, that lease application was never approved because I flagged it with the credit office the moment I saw it come in under his name. But that part could wait. I had just stepped into Natalie's house when my phone rang. The screen lit up with Isabel. I answered instantly. Her voice broke through soft sobs. Mom, I'm on my way to Aunt Natalie's. I need to know what's going on. I paused for a beat, my chest tightening. Isabel, I didn't want you to worry on your big day. Dad's telling everyone you've lost it, that you've been plotting to destroy our family. People are looking at me like I'm the daughter of someone unstable. You don't have to tell them, but you owe me the truth. I had nothing left to say but a simple response. All right, come, I'll tell you everything. 30 minutes later, Isabel walked in, still in her midnight blue graduation dress, makeup smeared from crying. She ran into my arms like she did as a child after nightmares. I held her tightly, inhaling the lavender scent from her hair, the same shampoo I'd bought for her since she was in 7th grade. I don't understand, she whispered. Why would Dad do this? Why today? I guided her to the armchair across from the fireplace. Natalie walked in from the kitchen, setting down a tray of tea, eyes firm but filled with empathy. Told everything, every detail, every sting, from the moment I spotted the first missing funds to the messages from ASF sent to Nathan that read, I can't wait to be with you every day. Isabel sat silently, hands clenched, eyes red but unblinking. How long were you going to let me live in that lie, she asked. Not yelling, not angry, just deeply hurt. I looked at her, voice soft. Until you had that diploma in your hand, I didn't want anything to dim your achievement. A long silence followed. Then Isabel nodded slowly. Get it. And thank you for carrying this alone. The doorbell rang. Natalie frowned. No need to guess who that is, I murmured. The door opened. Nathan stepped in, Audrey right behind him in a fitted cream blazer, eyes darting across the room like she was looking for an exit. Nathan looked the opposite, red-eyed, lips pressed tight. Clara, we need to talk, he said. Not here, Natalie cut in, arms crossed. This house isn't your stage for playing the victim. Isabel stood, positioning herself between us. No more pretending, Dad. I know everything. Nathan turned to her, startled. Isabel, you don't understand the full story. Do you not understand? She cut him off, voice shaking but clear. You drained our family's account, bought gifts for your mistress, put down a deposit on an apartment, and decided to destroy our family on my graduation day. I think I understand just fine. Audrey lowered her head. Nathan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Mom was there for every exam, every sleepless night. She paid my tuition by working twice the hours. You said we had to save for retirement, then spent the money on your affair, Isabel continued, each word slicing through the room. Don't insult Audrey, Nathan blurted, almost out of instinct. Oh, I don't need to, Isabel said coldly. You did that yourself when you brought her to the same dinner you knew Mom would attend. Audrey whispered, Greg, maybe we should go. I'm not done, Isabel said loudly. You didn't just betray Mom. You betrayed me. You stole a day that should have been the happiest of my life. Nathan took a step toward her, but Isabel backed away, eyes sharp in a way I'd never seen before. I'm not that naive girl anymore, and you're no longer the hero I thought you were. Audrey turned first. Nathan glanced around, lost, and finally looked at me. Clara, I know I messed up. I don't need an apology, Nathan. I need you out of our lives, and if I have to remind you, the temporary order from the court is still in effect until the hearing. I can call my lawyer right now. He didn't argue. He followed Audrey out. The door didn't slam, but it closed with finality. Isabel turned back and wrapped her arms around me, tears streaming. I'm sorry I doubted you, Mom, but now I know who truly loves me. I held her tightly. My heart still ached, but it felt lighter. My family had been broken, but not because of me. And now I knew, from the wreckage, we'd build something stronger, something real. I was organizing a stack of documents on my desk when Natalie stepped into the living room, her voice low but clear. Clara, they're back. And this time, she's with him. I didn't need to ask who she was. There was only one person shameless enough to show her face again. Audrey Sanders. I set the folder down and slowly stood up. Let them in. I want to see how far Nathan's little performance will go this time. Audrey walked in first, her makeup carefully done, but her eyes couldn't hide the unease. Nathan followed behind, his shirt wrinkled, the lines on his forehead deeper than ever. They sat down on the sofa across from me, like two students waiting to be graded. Clara, Nathan began, hands clasped. We're all adults here. I think we can find a solution without taking things too far. I gave him a cold smile. Too far? You lied, stole money, cheated on me, then announced a divorce in front of our daughter and our friends. And you think this isn't far enough? Yet. Audrey cleared her throat gently, like she wanted to cut in. I didn't mean to cause trouble, but Greg said the finances were already settled. I thought the two of you had agreed. I turned, pulled a file from the shelf, and dropped it on the table in front of them. What do you know about Nathan's private account? I have the full transaction history, including the ruby ring you bought on Union Street for $3,500, paid with a credit card tied to a company Greg created solely to withdraw funds from our joint account. Audrey frowned. He told me that was personal money? I laughed, not joyfully. Personal money from an account with my co-signature? That's adorable. Nathan snatched the file and flipped through the pages as if hoping to find a mistake. I folded my arms and stood tall. Greg, do you know what makes this whole thing laughable? You thought you were smart enough to cover your tracks, but you forgot one fundamental thing. I've managed your finances your entire adult life. Audrey turned to Nathan, her voice noticeably lower. You told me you had enough saved. You promised the beachfront apartment would be ready by June. I cut in coldly. Oh, you mean the unit in Pacifica? That lease application was denied due to poor credit. The office called to verify information, and I answered. I handled it before it ever got processed. Audrey's face drained of color. She turned fully to Nathan, revealing true anger for the first time. You lied to me? She hissed. You said everything was ready. You told me to just be patient a few more weeks. I'm working on it. Nathan replied, sweat beading on his forehead. It'll be fine. We just need Clara to ease up a bit. No, Greg, this isn't about me easing up. It's about you stealing, cheating, and now begging me to look the other way so you can preserve some sad little fantasy with your mistress. I cut him off, every word sharp as a blade. Audrey stood up. This is clearly way more than you told me. I thought you had a plan, not that I'd be sitting here listening to your wife itemize everything you stole. Nathan quickly reached for her hand, but Audrey yanked it back. Dante, don't touch me. I watched the scene, not with satisfaction, but with clarity. Everything I needed was unraveling right in front of me. Their relationship had been built on lies, and now it was caving in on its own. Nathan turned back to me, his voice quiet. Seriously, Sarah, if there's still anything between us. Was Nathan? I said, smirking. Past tense. There was. And now, I'm living a future where you no longer exist. I pointed at the door. Get out of my house. Now. Audrey didn't say another word. She walked quickly to the door, heels clacking against the wooden floor like the rhythm of an ending. Nathan stood, shoulders slumped, eyes searching mine for a hint of mercy. But I said nothing. I didn't need revenge. I just needed them to destroy each other, and they were doing it far better than I ever imagined. The preliminary hearing took place on a gloomy Monday morning at the family court in San Mateo County. A light drizzle misted the sky, and the damp cold seemed to freeze every remaining emotion. I sat in the car for a few minutes before stepping out, adjusting my coat and carrying the briefcase I had meticulously prepared for months. Natalie walked beside me, her hand lightly resting on my shoulder, a silent reminder that I wasn't alone. Nathan showed up 5 minutes late, escorted by a young attorney whose face was still babyish, eyes full of worry. I almost felt bad for him, dragged into a financially complex divorce because his client was too arrogant to hire someone seasoned. The judge was a woman in her 60s, silver hair neatly pinned back, half-rimmed glasses, and a voice like steel. She wasted no time on emotion. Everything was presented succinctly and thoroughly. The prenuptial agreement, proof of unauthorized transfers, unreported expenditures, and documentation of Nathan's infidelity. His lawyer rose nervously. Your Honor, we believe the prenuptial agreement is no longer valid due to the length of time. The judge cut him off, holding up the document. Clauses 14 and 18 clearly state the fidelity clause remains active until the marriage is legally dissolved. There is no expiration date. Did you read that? The young lawyer blushed, stammering. My mother thought. We did not notice that note. Well, now you have, she said curtly, then turned to me. Mrs. Whitmore, do you have any temporary requests? I nodded firmly. I request that the freeze on our joint accounts remain in place to preserve marital assets until financial discovery is complete. I also request exclusive residency of our current home as it pertains to ownership outlined in the agreement. The judge jotted notes, glancing at Nathan. He sat slumped, shoulders hunched like a man who had just been sentenced. All requests are reasonable and supported by law, she declared. The court orders continued freezing of joint accounts. The residence on Oak Ridge Avenue shall remain under the temporary control of Mrs. Whitmore. Mr. Whitmore shall have access only to his personal account for basic living expenses. Nathan leaned toward his lawyer, whispering something in desperation. I couldn't hear, but I saw his face. Nothing left of the man who once proudly declared he was leaving me as if it were a triumph. Now he sat there, powerless, ashamed, and silently watching the board flip against him. The judge continued. The official hearing will reconvene in 30 days for complete asset review and legal division. Court adjourned. The sound of the gavel echoed, sharp and final. I gathered my papers, stood up, and walked out of my seat without looking back. But I clearly heard Nathan's hurried footsteps behind us as we stepped into the hallway. Clara, wait, he called out, his voice stripped of all superiority. Can we talk like two adults? I turned around and met his gaze, steady, unshaken. You had 27 years to be an adult, Nathan. You chose deceit. I chose to end it. I made a mistake. No, I shook my head. You chose betrayal. My mistake was giving you too many chances. He went silent. I could see he had nothing left to defend himself. Natalie gently tugged on my arm. Let's go. We walked out of the courthouse. It was still raining, but I felt strangely light. After all these years, I no longer had to carry the weight of a rotting facade. I no longer needed permission to exist. He was still standing there, in that damp corridor, left behind like a shadow of who he once was. The news that Audrey had moved out of the rental apartment with Nathan came through a simple text from Natalie. She left the key and a handwritten note. I don't sign leases for bankrupt men. I read the words and felt nothing but a quiet sigh of relief. Part of me had already expected it. The only thing that ever tied Audrey to Nathan wasn't love, it was empty promises of beachfront condos, European vacations, and a brand new life. When all of it fell apart, the truth surfaced. Nathan had nothing to offer her but a pile of mess and a decaying romantic resume. Friends slowly disappeared too. The couples who used to join us for monthly dinners, the co-workers who once called Nathan inspiring, they quietly but firmly distanced themselves. In the suburban upper-middle-class circles of the Bay Area, no one wanted to be associated with a man declared in violation of a prenuptial agreement and publicly dumped by his mistress. I knew Nathan was living in a small rented studio apartment in South San Bruno. One of my attorneys had run into him at the bank, looking gaunt, clothes wrinkled, arguing with the teller about his daily withdrawal limit. I didn't feel joy, I didn't feel pity, I felt calm, like I'd finally lifted a massive boulder off my chest after years of carrying it. While he sank into the ruins he created, I began rebuilding from the ground up. But where to begin? I chose an old dream, the one I had shelved because Nathan once said, "There's no need for two primary breadwinners in one household." I rented a small office on the third floor of a red brick building in the financial district. Just enough space for a desk, a plush leather chair, and a bookshelf filled with guides on personal finance, investing, and marital law. A wooden sign hung by the window simply read, Clara Whitmore, Personal Financial Consulting for Women. My first client was a 47-year-old woman in the middle of divorcing a husband with a gambling addiction. She trembled as she held her bank statements, whispering that she had no idea where to begin. I sat with her for 3 hours, walking her through every line item, every number, and how to find her footing if she learned where to plant it. As she left, she turned and hugged me. "No one ever told me I was smart enough to do this on my own," she said. I smiled gently and replied, "Now's the time to start believing it." A week later, she referred a friend, then a friend of that friend. Within 3 months, I had to hire an assistant. Isabel helped me design the website, write blog posts sharing financial insights for women going through divorce, single mothers, or those entering middle age, without ever managing their own money. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," Isabel said during one visit. "I used to think you just tolerated everything for the family, but now you look like the strongest version of yourself." I smiled, brushing her hair gently. "I'm proud of you too. I did this partly because you helped me see that sacrifice doesn't mean giving up who you are." Each passing day, I felt more alive. No more checking my phone at 10 at night, afraid Nathan was late. No more sleepless nights fixing the financial wreckage of his impulsive ventures. I lived with the belief that if a woman could lose herself in the name of love, she could also rise again from the very place she fell. One September evening, as I locked the office for the day, I saw Nathan across the street, thin, hands stuffed in the pockets of a worn coat, eyes vacant. I wasn't shaken, I wasn't angry, I just nodded politely, turned away, got in my car, and locked the door. As I drove off, in the rearview mirror, I saw he was still standing there, small, lost, and me? I was driving the opposite direction, never looking back. The final hearing took place on a chilly November morning, exactly 29 years to the day Nathan and I had married at a small church near Lake Tahoe. Sitting in the courtroom, waiting for my name to be called, I remembered that day, me in a lace long-sleeved dress sewn by my mother, and Nathan trembling so hard he almost dropped the ring during our vows. The memories hadn't vanished, but today they no longer made me tremble or question. Today I came to sign the end. With steady hands and a heart that had healed itself. Nathan showed up alone. No lawyer, no Audrey, no one by his side. He sat 3 rows away, head bowed over a thick folder in his lap, like keeping his head down could somehow shield him from judgment. The judge was still Ms. Hanson, the same one from the preliminary hearing. She didn't ramble. After reviewing all documents and hearing both sides confirm no further disputes, she nodded. Based on the valid prenuptial agreement, verified financial documents, and proof of breach of fidelity clause, the court hereby rules Mrs. Clara Whitmore shall retain full ownership of the property at 1327 Oak Ridge Avenue, 70% of marital assets, all personal retirement accounts, and any shares held in former joint business. Mr. Nathan Whitmore shall retain only assets previously separated, including a personal savings account at First Commonwealth Bank. I wasn't surprised. Everything unfolded exactly as Charlotte, my attorney, and I had prepared for nearly a year. But hearing the judge say it aloud brought a quiet sense of satisfaction to my chest. Not from victory, but from justice being served. Nathan didn't object. No arguments, no words. When Judge Hanson read the final sentence, "This marriage is officially dissolved as of today." I didn't cry. I simply nodded and took a long breath like it was my first time breathing in my own air. Outside the courthouse, the sky was overcast but no longer raining. Natalie waited with a warm cup of coffee and open arms. "It's over," she said. "No," I replied. "It's just beginning." 3 months later, my consultancy, Whitmore Financial Transitions, officially opened a second office in Palo Alto. I hired a tax specialist, a legal advisor, and a therapist to support women going through divorce or widowhood. Every Thursday evening, I hosted a free workshop helping women understand money, legal rights, and how to protect their dignity when life crashes around them. Not everyone came because of divorce. Some had just lost a spouse, some had just retired. Others were only beginning to realize that for years they had let someone else manage not just their finances, but their entire lives. I did not rescue them. I simply showed them, as I once learned myself, that they could rise again without begging anyone for permission. Isabel came to my office one late afternoon, holding a bouquet of white daisies. "My ad campaign just got approved today," she said, eyes glowing, and I thought, I wanted to share this moment with you first. I hugged her. The bouquet brushed my shoulder, its scent soft and gentle, like an unspoken apology she didn't need to say out loud. "I still have the wedding photo frame you'll use someday," I teased. Isabel laughed, her voice sparkling. "I'll pick my own frame. But if a man doesn't value me the way you taught me, I won't wait 29 years. I looked at her, my heart full of pride. One early spring day, I returned to the house on Oak Ridge Avenue after the renovations. I replaced all the curtains, took down the old photos, and painted the walls in warm tones. In the corner of the living room, I placed a reading chair, something I had always wanted, but Nathan once said was a waste of space. I sat in it, late sunlight spilling through the window. No one sat beside me, but I didn't feel alone. I felt whole. I am Clara Whitmore, no longer anyone's wife, no longer the shadow behind an undeserving man. I am a woman who survived betrayal, rose from heartbreak, and rebuilt a life not to please others, but to finally live as myself. My love story has ended, but my journey is just beginning. My story is not just about divorce, but a journey of reclaiming myself after nearly 3 decades of sacrifice and being forgotten. I learned that real love never begins with betrayal or ends in lies. When I let go of someone who once meant everything, I didn't lose my worth, I found it again. Women are not born to stand behind anyone. We have the right to start over even when it feels too late. Because true strength begins the moment we choose ourselves. What do you think about Clara's journey? Was she right to walk away in order to rediscover herself? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family and life.